Welcome into Boxing Scene Today. Well, could we be seeing a circling of the wagons as Dana White and TKO make their plans to get into boxing early next year? Well, Oscar De La Hoya, sitting with Ariel Helwani, had some choice words about the upcoming promotion and how it might draw other promoters together. Speaking of being drawn together, Jimmy Smith in studio, the champs joining us via Zoom, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi. By the way, great to see you, Paulie. Didn't know if I'd be seeing you today, man. Congratulations on your fight and your win last Saturday. I know you're recovering, so I'll keep them brief. Watch your blood pressure, all right? Don't start bleeding or anything like that. Don't get too angry because we're talking about Oscar De La Hoya and his comments about Dana White and TKO. Once again, in an interview with Ariel Helwani, Oscar De La Hoya, of course, Golden Boy Promotions, said, if you're a person trying to do the right by the sport, you don't eliminate the bill that's protecting the fighters. The fighter is the product. Without that clause, the fighters are vulnerable. The fact that a new entity is coming into boxing and already wants to change a bill that has been in place for decades that protects fighters, to me, is shady. He talked about how he brought fighters up. He talked about a potential showdown between Boots Ennis and Virgil Ortiz, who still has to get past Erickson Lubin, and maybe coming together with Eddie Hearn. Chris, when we talk about TKO, the side effect that might be good is people like Eddie Hearn, Oscar De La Hoya, who have been rivals before. He tried to downplay that, but he said, we'll come together to kind of get the fights done that fans want to see. Could that be a side effect of TKO getting into the game?
I mean, we always talk about movie references on this show, right? So I think of the movie Independence Day. You've got the alien coming in and attacking the Earth, and then all the other countries that have been warring come together to fight the new invaders. I'm not saying that these guys are invaders or taking it seriously, but it's just kind of
disruptors for sure, right?
Maybe think of that movie scene. But in terms of what Oscar is saying and Muhammad Ali Act, it's hard not to agree. And the thing about the Muhammad Ali Act, it's in place to help protect the fighters, but really it has no teeth. And it not only does it not need to be taken out, it needs to do the opposite. It needs more power. I think it needs to be restructured and reworked in a way that actually gives fighters even more protection. Because essentially, it's to protect fighters from managers and promoters and double dipping and things like that, and understanding that how much money's in the pot, so promoters can't just be like, "Oh, here's a fight for you for $100,000." Meanwhile, he's making $1 million. It's $1 million pot. So that's what it's for. But really, it needs to be even more intense and more detailed in order to protect fighters. So in terms of the Muhammad Ali Act, what they're talking about, getting rid of it or changing it or abolishing, whatever that they're trying to do. I think it actually needs to be the opposite. I think it needs to be scrutinized and improved upon, and made into a much bigger act moving forward to help protect the fighters and help keep things at least on somewhat of a level playing field between the actual fighters and the promoters who are putting on the shows. But it doesn't look like it's going to go that way in terms of what the TKO is trying to do. They want more power. They want to get rid of all of the things that the Muhammad Ali Act had in terms of being able to quote unquote double dip with the ranking systems, the belts, and who gets what fights. So it doesn't look good. It doesn't pass the eye test when you look at it. But I mean, we'll see how these things play out. But you got to understand that all of these other promoters, anyone who's coming new to the block, these guys are going to kind of think, what's going on here? Are they trying to take over? They're trying to change the thing that I've been doing for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. There's going to be pushback, but I'm curious to see how this all plays out. I really don't know.
I remember, Paulie, when Sergey Kovalev fought Canelo and they delayed the fight because there was a UFC on. It was the BMF title, the first one between Masvidal and Diaz. And it was, to a lot of people, a low point for boxing. A big boxing event got delayed to go around a big mixed martial arts event. First time we've ever seen that. Since then, I think that was a wake-up call, and we've seen much better fights, better matchmaking over the last few years. Could it be that kind of thing where promoters wake up and start making better fights because of this outside influence?
You got a good point, Jimmy. But that was one of Canelo's, cherry picks. Kovalev was a past Kovalev. It wasn't the crusher Kovalev by the time Canelo.
Right.
Canelo loved to fight fighters at a certain point when they were on the way down, they were down. So that's why when you look at his record 20 years from now, it's full of big names, but you actually don't realize that he fought them when they all sucked already, So Kovalev is one of those guys. Even though Kovalev actually had wound up fighting better than he was expected to against Canelo, Kovalev was already considered past it. So therefore, this was not a big event in boxing. It was just a Canelo event. So therefore, it was a big UFC event, which was always a solid matchup, was going to always be more exciting than a Canelo showcase event, which Canelo loved to do. Canelo basically used 90% of his career is showcase fights. So Um, that was a low point, but in that regard, I blame people like Canelo more for dragging boxing through the mud because it's because of people like that eventually we got to the point we're at now. Canelo's, the Gervonta Davises of the world, and we got to this point where now we have this problem. If we don't have that, we don't start with problem A, we never reach problem B. Regardless of the fact, though, we did reach that point. We did reach that problem, and the UFC model with making good matchups also is a model that fans want to see. They want to see solid, good matchups. But I still reiterate the fact that there's other promotions in MMA. So you're never just because you never hear about the best fighters in other promotions, or you don't hear about unification options in MMA because the I don't know, the PFL champion and I had this conversation with Ariel Helwani the other week. Just because you don't hear about it, just because MMA fans are too stupid to ever demand a fight between the one champion in the weight class against the PFL champion in the weight class against the UFC champion in the weight class. And, people can say, oh, well, why would they argue about that? It's not possible. What do you mean, why would they argue about that? Because you're supposed to want to know who the best fighter in the world is at a certain weight class. You don't just assume it. You're supposed to have them fight and actually find out. That's why. So I wouldn't go as far as say the UFC model was the best as far as making the fights. You just needed a dumb enough fan base to fall for that. But still, they were making good fights. Let's be honest. Well, I'm not completely critical of it. But when it comes to the Ali Act getting pushed back, because now, of course, you get people that come in, they claim to be making the best fights. So now they're gonna say, oh, we're gonna make the best fights. We got to remove the Ali Act. This is our deal here. And so, you get kind of worried, you get kind of scared. But Chris Champion made a great point about it. The Ali Act needs to be amended in a stronger way, not in an eliminatory way. I've said that for a while because let's face it, even boxing promoters know how to sort of get around the Ali Act. They know how to navigate around the Ali Act. Many times when I was given my Ali Act papers, I was given to me at the weigh-in, where you can no longer really negotiate anything, or even there was a fight when I was given to him after the fight was over. It's like they gave it to me late. I could have probably argued it. But regardless, you're not at a point where you're negotiating at that point anymore. You already agreed on everything. Because the Ali Act basically forced you to find out all the numbers prior to the fight. Or at least the majority of the numbers prior to the fight. So it didn't give you a deadline. It didn't really have a deadline set. It didn't have stipulations set. So the promoter would play with the time and everything to show you that, so they would honor the Ali Act, but were they really honoring it in spirit? They were just honoring it in paperwork. So it did need more teeth as far as having more power. But what I at least why I want to at least protect the Ali Act and in whatever form it stays is because no matter what, a fighter can take a promoter to court if he doesn't believe the numbers. And on the basis of the Ali Act, he can then audit the promoter and say, okay, I want to see everything now from this fight. I didn't trust anything in this fight, or I didn't trust anything in this whole year of these fights. And I want to see all the numbers. I want to see audit everything. And based on that audit, you have a deal in your contract where you're entitled to a certain amount of percentages or whatever, and you can, sort of go back retroactively and then still fight for your Ali Act rights and get more money. If you eliminate the Ali Act, what you get is what you get. It doesn't matter what the show generated. It doesn't matter if, like a champ said, if the show generates $1 million and you only get 100,000, even though it generated everything generated was based off you. It doesn't. None of it matters anymore. Because you have no right to fight for it. That's it. What you agreed to is this, and you don't have a leg to stand on. You have no rights, and that's it. So for that reason, the Ali Act, in whatever way it exists, it's still better to protect it. I don't think anybody's ever going to give it more teeth. We were lucky to be given the Muhammad Ali Act to begin with, but to ask for it to have more teeth, it would be really asking for a lot, even though it would be needed. But this is the reason I find it necessary to be protected, because in the very least, MMA fighters can never take the promoter to court and win in that way, because based on something like this, because of the Ali Act, even if it exists in a small way, we still can fight for our rights in court.
And from speaking from experience, I was pretty litigious during my boxing career. I didn't like the way promoters handle certain things, and once I got wind of it, and Paul, you actually helped me learn a bit about the dark side of the boxing business. But Man, I use the Aliac to sue a couple different people, so it does give some grounds for us to actually fight back. Did it have any teeth? Did it really help me? No, but but to your point, champ, it gave me something to stand on. It was a very small box, and I was fighting giants, but it was something for me to stand on. If that's not there, and there's really nothing for the fighter to fight back against, it's a scary situation. I would not want to be a fighter in a world where I didn't have the Aliac.
Yeah, but this idea, Chris, to fire back at that is there are options now in terms of every boxer doesn't have to fight for TKO. Every boxer doesn't have to sign with TKO. There are other big players out there. And as De La Hoya says, he goes, I'm going to keep doing what I have been doing when it comes to my matchmaking and building fighters. You don't have to sign with TKO the way in MMA, the one thing that Dana White has is you'll never be number one without me. If you don't sign with me, you're never going to be number one. And since Fedor Emelianenko, that has been the case. This idea that boxers can stay away from TKO, this idea that he has to lure fighters in, what's your thought on that? It's much more of a free market system when it comes to boxing as opposed to mixed martial arts.
Well, I don't think it's about staying away. I think it's just there's another player in town. Cool. It's competition. I love that. This is what this is all about. It's not a monopoly. This isn't MMA. This isn't just the UFC as the biggest, baddest group in town. We have a ton of promoters that are all big, that are all bad, and have been doing it for a long time. Good. It creates a competitive market for guys to have different options. How many top tier fighters have we seen jump ship from one promoter and go to another? We're seeing it more and more lately. The Devin Haney's of the world, and before that, Floyd was with Top Rank, and then he shifted over to Al Heyman. Jaron Ennis now switching over to Matchroom. We've had a lot of that recently, and it's a good thing. It allows fighters different options and different signing and different paydays, different financial structuring of their careers. It's not just one show. You just don't show up to the overlord and he tells you what you're getting paid. Take it or leave it. Either you're fighting for me and you're getting this, or you're not fighting at all, which is which is a pretty scary thing to think about. But it's kind of how it is in some other sports. Boxing's not like that. It is competition. It is meritocracy to a degree, and it's how you negotiate and deal with different promotions. It's a very small population. Boxing is a nuanced sport. We will never be one of the major sports like an NFL, like soccer is worldwide, like even MLB or NBA. It's never going to be that big of a sport. There just isn't that much interest in it. It is a small pool. So the people that you deal with, the promoters, the managers, the fighters, it's very, very small. Paulie and I, we know everybody in the sport. It doesn't take that long. It doesn't take that long to know everybody because it really is a small group. And the good thing about that is you can't screw people too bad because you're going to see them on the other side of the road every day. So there's a little bit of like, all right, we need to play nice because we're going to be in the same room for a while kind of situation. So I don't think it's the worst thing. I think we have a new player in town. TKO's coming in with a ton of money. It's going to be a great streaming platform where we're going to get to see a lot of fights. A lot of fighters are going to get to grow up on that and build themselves on that. But there's still going to be the major players. There's still going to be the Oscar De La Hoyas, the PBCs, the Top Ranks, the Matchrooms of the world. So again, we're adding in another competitor. Cool. I think it's going to help the fighters.
Well, De La Hoya said in the same interview about his relationship with Eddie Hearn, he goes, the conflicts we've had are fun in games. This idea, we all remember the Cold War that took place, of course, between Top Rank and Golden Boy, between De La Hoya and Bob Arum. This idea that it could be a thaw between promoters trying to work together. Paulie, De La Hoya said, hey, I'd be happy to work with Eddie Hearn. Everything we said about each other, that was fun in games. This idea that promoters might be coming together a little bit more. That thaw's got to help everybody.
Yeah, it's one of those enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing, right?
Right.
It does make me think that Top Rank has been around so long that they get to go to war with the big player, and then every new generation, Top Rank's still around with the other their rivals get finished. And then there's a new player that comes up, and Top Rank's a rival with them. Top Rank was a rival with Don King. Now Top Rank is a rival with with Golden Boy for a while. Now Top Rank is still laying around and, looking to they're also going to look to be working with other promoters. I think this is also good because, okay, if the Turki Al Sheikh side makes great fights and they've been making great fights for a while, and if the promoters on the other side start aligning together and make great fights, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that could actually be beneficial to boxing because competition, what it starts to make you do is it starts to make you raise your game up a little bit. You can't afford to keep creating these Gervonta Davises of the world where you create this product and then keep them away from all the dangerous fights and hope that you just cash in on this product. because otherwise the other side of that is great fights will be made up by your competition, and your competition is going to start to steal away fans, to steal away viewership. So you're going to have to keep up by making great fights. So I think I would like to at least be able to hope that the days of creating products like this are over, and then this is the last generation of that, and you're starting to see, even with the exception of Gervonta Davis, you're starting to see guys, take each other on. We saw Devin Haney fight Ryan Garcia. Now he's fighting Brian Norman. We see, Shakur Stevenson finally got a name fighter in Zepeda, and dominated, and is looking to, he's in the conversation for maybe a Teofimo Lopez fight in the new year. There are conversations, and there are actual fights happening more and more and more that we like. And then, of course, they're going to happen on both sides. So there's potential here for the competition to, be good for boxing. And of course, in between, we're pro boxing. We're the little engine that could. We continuously grow and make these great fights at the level that we make it at. And I think we've been a great feeding ground for those bigger fights. I think you prove yourself through our conveyor belt of top fighters that are coming up the ladder. You are definitely prepared to wind up fighting on a Turkey Al Sheikh show, or on a championship boxing show on another network. You know what I mean? Because you come through the pro box conveyor belt that has really tested you. So now you're ready for those kind of fights, because those fights are great because they test you. But if you get up there having been tested already, you already know the mentality, the mindset that it takes to succeed in this kind of pressure situation. And I think you're going to create better fighters and breed better fighters, and you'll weed out the pretenders as well.
Well, it looks like different things ahead for boxing. As you guys said, competition might shake things up and give us some great fights in 2026. But what's going to happen is Pro Box TV always going to be delivering great fights, just like Paulie said. The guys who win on our air end up in the big fights. Well, come here. That's right. Boxing Scene Today, to get your boxing news. Join us, find out why millions are watching, and heal up, Paulie.